Hi, I'm Betty. I'm stronger than stroke. I had a stroke 6 years ago. I said I'm going to finally share my story. And I know so many people are like, but you are too young to have a stroke. Thank you. Thank you. I do believe that I was too young to have a stroke, but I did have a stroke. And I had that stroke 6 years ago. And then they say, but you don't look like you had a stroke. You're right. I don't look like I had a stroke. Not from this setting, right? But let's just. Okay, so now that we got that over with, do I look like I had a stroke now? um, yes, I definitely had a stroke. I have hemiplegia as a result of it. Um, Keep in mind, people can have strokes and you won't see any outside ailments. But once the brain is injured, there is a brain injury. So please don't judge people by what they look like or don't look like. Disability really does come in forms that you can see it, in forms that you can't see it. So now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about, of course, it's going to be multiple videos. I will start at the day of my stroke. Truly, I should start prior to that because I always get the question, what were your warning signs? Did you have any warning signs or did you just have a stroke? Well, I did have warning signs. I had plenty, and many people, including myself, when you are wrapped up in your life and you're wrapped up in your day-to-day schedule and you're busy and you're moving, you often neglect or dismiss real warning signs. So I had numbness down the left side of my arm, ended up having numbness down the left side of my arm and my leg at times. I had dizziness, I had lightheadedness, I had headaches including vomiting. There was a couple times that I actually fell and made excuses of, tripping down a step or my shoe, your shoe. So yes, many warning signs, and this was all before COVID. And I remember one day I had the numbness again and I was like, I'm gonna go to the hospital today, and I did. And everybody had masks on because it was flu season. And I'm like, I'm not going in there. I don't want the flu, and I didn't get the flu. But so many months later, I did have a major stroke, and I went into work on a Saturday. It was actually Cinco de Mayo, and I was like, I'm gonna get all caught up for Monday. And I was doing my work and feeling really proud of myself because I was getting ahead of everything, and numbness down the left side of my arm and my leg. And this day it was different. It was so intense. And I remember I called my sister and I said, today's the day, let's go back to the hospital because this is way more intense than I've ever felt it before. But of course, I wanted to keep working. So I said, once I'm done, then I'll come over. Well, I never made it that far because as I was typing, I literally watched my fingers on the left side. I was typing and I watched them stop. So I remember saying to myself, okay, it's time to stop playing games. And I backed out my chair, got up, and called my sister again, tried to lift my left arm, and I don't remember how high I could do it at that time, but I knew I couldn't lift my left arm. And we had just seen, we went to a 5K just a couple months earlier, and they had a booth out there, and it was talking about strokes and the side effects of strokes. And I was like, yeah, we need to keep this in mind for grandma. And like, of course, for all the older generation, we need to inform them of what the side effects of stroke are. And I was pretty much experiencing them. So there's an acronym called Be Fast. The first one is for balance. I was completely off balance, walking into walls, and so that I definitely checked off. E is for eyes, for your vision. I didn't have any blurry vision, but that is a side effect. Facial droop. That is something I didn't notice for myself. However, later on when I was at the hospital, I did have facial droop on the left side. Arm is for the arm weakness. I did have that. So FAS is for speech. Often stroke survivors will believe that they are speaking just fine, and the person listening to them is the ones hearing slurring of the words or mumbling or words, saying words in orders that don't make sense. So that's really for an outsider to view that. And T is for time, because truly every stroke survivor that is living is a miracle. There are so many stroke survivors who don't make it, and I am one of the survivors who made it, and I don't take that for granted. And that is one of the reasons I do what I do. So I have now became a certified life coach and motivational speaker. I want to bring hope to stroke survivors. I want to encourage the people who are working in the medical field or working on different devices for stroke survivors to keep doing what they're doing, because they are making advancements in stroke and how we recover and what's available. So that's kind of where I am now. So I skipped a bit all over the place, but going back to that day when I called my sister and I told her, yeah, I can't raise my left arm, but I still thought I was well enough to get in a car and drive, which is actually kind of scary. And luckily for me, I wasn't able to make it that far. I walked outside. I knew my walking, like I couldn't walk anymore, and I made it to a bench and I sat down and I called for help. I called 911. Wow. Really? See, this is why I've taken so long to tell my story. I told myself I was gonna tell my story and truly just tell it raw and uncut, because there's a lot that goes into having a stroke. It doesn't just affect your body, it affects your emotions, it affects your whole life, truly. And it's hard. One person recently said, he was like, you know, he had a brain injury, and he said, before my brain injury, I really thought I was strong. And after my brain injury, I truly know what strength is. And if you are a stroke survivor, no one knows someone who is. It does take a lot of strength to keep going. It takes a lot of perseverance and endurance, and truly patience with yourself, and patience with the situation, because it isn't easy. Stroke is difficult. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And the first part of it, where it does affect your body, and then you're recovering from that, and then it's like, wait a minute, what about my job? And what about my career, right? And what about my family and all the things I was able to do for them before my stroke? Things change, and then there's a lot of grief and sorrow that goes along with it. And I'm only supposed to be telling you the first part of this. So I go out, I call 911 myself, and luckily my speech was clear enough that they could understand, and I didn't pass out. Many stroke survivors will lose consciousness or awareness, and I didn't. I was able to call for help and give them instructions on how to get to me. Now, when the fire department came first, and they do their medical assessment, and they were like, maybe it's Bell's palsy, you know, because I must have been showing in the face at that time. But I don't think Bell's palsy affects the arm and leg. I could be wrong. But no, I couldn't stand up or walk at that point. And they put me in the ambulance. Now, the truth of the matter is, I'm thinking I'm okay, and now I'm worried about an ambulance bill. And I'm like, man. So they're like, well, we want to take you to the closest hospital. And I'm like, absolutely not. Take me to my hospital, because I already know you're going to send me to one hospital, and that hospital's going to want to transfer me to where my insurance covers. And it's so funny what's so important to you at that time. And at that time, it was not having a bill. And I was just like, I don't want this big, outrageous ambulance bill. So just take me to where I need to go, because I definitely didn't want to ride in the ambulance twice. And they were like, you could die, and you have to sign a waiver. And if you die and you didn't go to the closest hospital, we are not liable. And, you know, I signed it, and I went to my hospital, and from there they did basically code stroke. I don't know what color it is, but it's code stroke, and they're going to take you through the process of CT, MRI, blood work, everything that they need to do, because stroke is so critical. And they did the CT scan. They didn't tell me immediately that I had a brain bleed. So my stroke is a brain bleed, not a blood clot. So there's two different types of stroke, brain bleed, and that is crazy critical. So is the other one, but depending on how fast a bleed is, it can literally take you out very, very quickly. The statistic is 1 in 4 people live who have a brain bleed, and I am that one. So they do the CT scan and they say to me, like, they say to me, you have a brain bleed. And because I don't know a lot about stroke or any of that at that time, my only reference point to a brain bleed was one of my really good friends. This is this is why I put this off. This is why I was reluctant to truly share my story, because it's one thing when you're motivating and encouraging and being there for other people, but when you tell your story, when you tell your story, there is so many intricate details, sometimes heartbreaking details that you're reliving, you know. And I was sharing with my mentor, you know, kind of where I'm at, and she was like, you need to go back and read your journals. You need to go back and look at it, because I did so much journaling after my stroke. I'm right hand dominant, left side affected, so I was blessed enough to be able to continue to write. And with that said, there's so many intricate details. And going back to the story of when the CT scan was revealed to me and it was like, you have a brain bleed, my only reference point was my really good friend when she was a young adult. Her mom had a brain bleed and she died very quickly. My friend said her and her mom made deviled eggs together, and she went off to a party, my friend did, and during the course of just a few hours, her mom had a brain bleed and passed away. And she remembered, like, wait a minute, I was just with my mom. She was just fine, 100% well and fine and okay. And within hours, she was gone. And that was my reference point. I did not know about stroke or brain bleeds, aneurysms, all of those things. And I said in the ER, like, I'm not going to die. I truly had a peace that came over me. And I remember telling people around me, I'm like, I'm not going to go to the light. And I'm literally joking, but I also was very serious that I felt a peace and that I was going to live. And when you hear more of my story, I joke around saying, the doctors are like, wow, she's still alive. And I say that because in my story, I go on to have 3 years of brain bleeds. And I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be alive. One brain bleed takes people out. And now I've had multiple bleeds.